Hello, St. Peter and St. Paul. Today is Thursday, April 2nd, and we're about 3 weeks into a very different situation. We've just heard that the schools are going to be online for the rest of the year, and the governor is soon going to issue a shelter-in-place order. And I don't know about you, but I need a haircut. I got to do something about this mop here. It was already long enough a couple of weeks ago, but now I'm going to have to wait another month at least, maybe more than that. So we'll see how bushy I look by the end of this. 2 months of lost school experience can seem like forever, especially when 2 months is still a large percentage of your life. But you will build on that loss, especially if you go looking for those new opportunities that God has to give you. You will find new opportunities for blessing, even in the midst of this weird and difficult time and this difficult situation. For me, I'm trying to make the most of things. We are fairly well stocked up on toilet paper and Clorox wipes. And you would think in this time of social distancing that kayaking would be the perfect pastime. But when you go kayaking on the rivers, you've got to get a shuttle. Basically, you're carpooling from people who come in from all over the area and carpooling up to the put-in or down to the takeout. And so that's not really passing muster, especially if we're going to have a shelter-in-place thing. So it's really put a cramp in my kayaking lifestyle. So instead, my wife and I are doing a little bit of yard work, trying to beautify our own little patch of paradise and get an opportunity to enjoy some of the sunshine. She and I have the opportunity to eat lunch together and eat dinner together a lot more often than we often do. So there are new opportunities in this time for us as well, and we're looking for them and praying to have eyes to see them and that God would show us the wisdom of all that. When I first went to seminary, I was a new student at seminary. The new students gathered together, and one of the seminary deans talked with us about how, she said, 6 weeks into seminary, it never fails, emotionally people just start falling apart. And it's just for some reason that 6-week period. Now, we're not 6 weeks into this, we're maybe 3 weeks along, but certainly there's plenty of stress to go along. There was a friend of mine who grew up in the United States but then moved to Japan, lived in Japan for a number of years, and he came to seminary in the States. And he said, well, it's like culture shock. He said, when you have to pay attention to so much that is so different for so long, nothing is familiar, nothing is natural, and so you have to pay attention to that so much. It takes some wear and tear. It's a little bit exhausting emotionally and mentally. And so even good things that are different can produce some stress. So be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with others. This is a time when we realize those things that really matter. Those relationships that we have, not only with God, but with our families. This is a time to take shelter in God and to deepen those relationships with God, those relationships with others as well, and most especially those others that you might have to live with in close quarters. Rely on forbearance and forgiveness and a good sense of humor as well. And not only is this a time when we might have to wrestle a little bit with each other, the people that we live with, but it might be a time when we wrestle with God. But we wouldn't be the first. There's a story in the Bible about a man who wrestled with God. He was a bit of a cheat and a scoundrel, and at some point he found himself all alone and very vulnerable. And then he wrestled with God all night long. And he said, I will not let you go until you bless me. And so God blessed him. His name was Jacob, and God gave him a new name, gave him the name Israel, one who wrestles with God. And so let us follow in the footsteps of Israel, even as we follow in the footsteps of Jesus in these final days of Lent, leading up to the crucifixion, leading up to the resurrection, for us leading up to the celebration of resurrection and new life on Easter. Let's follow in those footsteps. Let's seek out and find God where God is at work in our lives and rejoice as we find Him. And with a great deal of humor, we'll make it through this. One day at a time, we will. And so, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord lift the light of His countenance upon you. May the Lord look upon you and smile. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.